Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Happy Devils Sunday! You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast, Season 2, Episode 7. What a great podcast. You can listen to us on letsgodevils.com, Facebook Live. We got a lot of Facebook Live listeners now filing in. You can like and follow our Facebook page at Let's Go Devils Podcast. Twitter, Periscope, follow us there at Let's Go Devils Pod. Again, it's at Let's Go Devils Pod. Why? Just pod? 15 characters or less. Stupid Twitter and Periscope. YouTube Live. We are on YouTube Live. Subscribe to YouTube Live. We got our own YouTube channel. Just go to Let's Go Devils. Wow, I'm definitely plugging, guys. I'm just definitely, I got to keep on plugging.
You're on a roll.
Keep
Plug
going.
away.
Yeah,
You're on a roll.
And also, we will pick out of a hat the first 100 subscribers of our new YouTube channel to win a free T-shirt, a Let's Go Devils podcast T-shirt. Also, you could follow us on Twitch. I think we have 3 followers now. We're on Twitch. We're streaming live on Twitch.
Hey, we've added.
Also, we're also on iTunes, newly on Spotify. We actually put that out there that we're on Spotify. Pretty cool. And also on the iHeartRadio app, iHeartRadio.com. We're everywhere, all powered by the Primetime Radio Network. Also, we'd like to welcome in our new sponsor of all the phone segments for this season. You got to plug them. Without them, we can't do the show. Nova Product Design. They are big Devils fans. They do a lot of product designs, manufacturing designs, and also they help build our bunker studio here in beautiful New Jersey in an undisclosed location where this bunker studio, guys, that's Nova Product Design helped us build, will allow us during a nuclear holocaust and with cockroaches and and just the Let's Go Devils pocket. Well, yeah, maybe the squirrels in the bunker will be able to survive. Yeah. But we got a big podcast tonight because not only have one, but we got two guests. Our first guest is Devils alumni, former Devils radio commentator, and now the current Metropolitan Rivers head coach, Randy Velischek. You better turn up the volume when Randy Velischek comes on, because let me tell you, he is such a gentle man and he's very soft-spoken. But I always wondered, how is he ever on radio? Because I can barely hear him in person. But we're going to turn up the volume. You're going to hear Randy. He's driving up to Montreal right now, and hopefully we get him before he hits the Adirondacks where you get no cell phone signal. And also, we got a big Devils fan, but he's also, no slouch, he's a SiriusXM host, sports reporter, Rob Brender, good friend of Beer Barons, but also I remember him on SNY, and I got a lot of questions. He's covering Major League Baseball right now. The World Series is about to happen, and he is taking the time out of his day to talk to us about the Devils, maybe a little baseball, a little fun. But anyway, I want to go to we got a busy show. I just want to do my Woo report, little monologue for about a minute. Devils beat Dallas 3-0. Beat down Keith Kincaid with the shutout to start the week. We thought that, in my mind, we're going to go 82-0-0. Not so fast. We lost to the Colorado Avalanche 5-3. Yep. I was thinking we're going to go 81-1-0, but now the possibilities of 82-0. We lost to Philadelphia Flyers last night, 5-2 at the Wells Fargo Center. But let me tell you guys, this is what I'm going to say. It's not like this team got blown out, even though the score said 5-3 and 5-2. 3 empty net goals combined. The Devils were always in it. They were a lot closer than you think. Had the lead with Colorado, but couldn't hold on. And then also they were tied in the third period with the Flyers. Brian Boyle with that goal, 2 minutes and 50 seconds or something in. But the Flyers scored, and then they scored all these cheap empty net goals and thinking, hey, I'm going to get a big contract because I scored these empty net goals. No, you're not. It was a lot closer than you think, but I do have some concerns. And towards the end of the program, we got to go through the injury report. We haven't done that in a while. Fortunately, we're going to have to do that. Season. Yeah, that's what I meant by a while. I don't think we've done it I don't think we've done it months. But anyway, but there are a lot of injuries. Travis Zajac, Steve Santini. Ooh, that was an awful injury, broke a jaw. But we will talk about that a little bit later.
I was going to say it sucked because the poor kid just jumps into the game and right away he gets his jaw broken. So I think he was on the ice for 2 minutes and 15 seconds or something like that.
Welcome to the NHL.
Oh God! You know what though? That injury to Zajac is a huge one, and everybody that sits here and complains about Zajac and wants to trade him and wants to send him here and send him there, you got to see how valuable he is to this team in every situation, especially faceoffs. And especially in that Philadelphia game, because they got, I think the final numbers are something like 44-19 or something completely lopsided in the faceoff circle. So they held their own in both games. Colorado, they look slow, they look sluggish. I think after that injury to Zajac, it just seemed to deflate the team a little bit, or it just seemed like they couldn't catch up. And Colorado's no joke. Landeskog scored 2 more goals the next night, so it's not like they're the bottom of the basement anymore.
No, I agree, and I actually got a real funny story about watching that game against Colorado on Thursday. I actually filled in net in Morristown to play in their Thursday night league. They have they've got a TV in the rink, and it's within view of the rink. So before I had to play, I'm watching there. I got dressed. I went out there, half dressed, and was watching. And And when I got on the rink, in between periods, I just went over to the glass, see what was going on, and then towards the end of the game, I was able to catch that, and I was like, "Oh, I'll forget this." We came close to the end of that Colorado game. We were pushing, and all of a sudden, it didn't fall in our favor.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people were kind of pointing fingers at John Hines to say that he might have, bringing in Stafford and either sitting Q or sending Quenneville back down to Binghamton and bringing up Rooney. Those might have been questionable decisions, and I can't disagree. Rooney was a good replacement in the sense that he is a good power, a PK, so he's good on the penalty kill. But outside of that, I think keeping Quenneville up would have been a good idea. I think his energy could have been inserted into that lineup, especially against Philadelphia. Philadelphia that Voracek goal, I mean, it just killed me to watch him. He skated coast to coast basically and was uncontested walking through, and then just, forehand, backhand, like the easiest looking goal in the world. It was just a backbreaker. And if I had to watch that gritty one more time, I think I was going to jump through my window.
See, luckily on the
nightmare
on
fuel.
The gritty, luckily on the gritty front, I had to hear most of that game on the. I had to listen to most of that game on the radio because I was down in I was out of state in Delaware. The part that I did catch was I posted to the group. I was sitting there watching it on my phone on the ferry ride back from Delaware to Jersey while drinking a 32-ounce growler of beer. It was great until the Flyers took the lead at the very end, and then it was terrible.
Yeah. But I mean,
it was. I was going to say it was pretty fun to watch. To watch the game while floating along the bay.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. I mean, it's the Devils start out 4-0, and they seem like they're just rolling. Everything is clicking. Everything is going perfectly. This is what happens. This is the NHL. You have a key injury to a key guy. It kind of throws a wrench into everything. And then you have, the game against the Flyers where you lose a defenseman so early in the game. Then you're rolling with 5 defensemen the entire game. Vatanen played damn near half the game. I think he had like 29 minutes and however many seconds, but you could tell at certain points they were gassed. They were absolutely gassed.
Wait a minute. I have to read what Eric Burns just said. He just put in the group, Gritty looks like he works the parking lots of truck stops for meth. That is great.
It's true, right?
Oh my God.
Those eyes.
Oh yeah, that thing is just a disaster. And people either love it or hate it. There's no in between with that stupid mascot.
Oh, well, I think the Flyer country, they love it for whatever reason, but
I know. You know what though? Speaking of the changes that Coach Hines made, why not make them early in the season to see what works? Like, you never know. You may make a change and it may work awesomely. It's still so early in the season that you can make up 2 losses here. We're not obviously going to go 82-0. That was obvious. But 2 losses now we can make up for. It's better than getting down the stretch and being tight, and then something happens, you get an injury, and then you have no idea. Yeah, you laugh at what Eric just wrote. I don't know if we should read it on there, but
yeah, I think I'll for the group.
So you have to make these changes now. Just see what you have, so that into the season when injuries do occur, like they are now, you know who to call on, who to rely on. So I don't fault the coach for making these changes yet. Still early in the season. You got a lot of young players.
Yeah, neither do I. And I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about this team. And I think one of them was, who's our second line center? And I think a lot of pressure is going to be put on Zacha, depending on how long Zajac is going to be out for. And it's now his time to step up and take the reins of that position and, become that second line center that everybody was going to hopefully have him become.
So if I'm not mistaken, Zacha has yet to score though, correct? This season?
I don't think he's registered a point yet.
He has had an untold amount of chances. He's had so many chances, even in opening night, and he just can't seem to bury it. Like nothing is in his favor. Hall finally broke through with a goal, which was awesome.
Nico broke through, which was nice.
Yeah, but Zacha just seems to be so snake bitten right now. Like he cannot buy a goal. it's like something's got to change with him. That he's going to have to. Something's just going to go in real ugly, and it's just going to break free. Like Taylor Hall, before he scored his goal the other night on Thursday, he hit the post, I believe, early in the game. Yeah, and then Gina in the group just said that Nico finally scored too, which is true. It was good to get those guys off to finally scoring. Even we say finally, we're what, 6 games in? It's
seriously. Yeah, but Kyle Palmieri has been setting the bar pretty high. That's why,
and that's fine.
7 goals in the first 3 games.
But you want to know what that does? Yeah, but you want to know what that does though. So Palmieri's a hot hand now. So all of the teams coming in, will now focus on Palmieri. And if Hall and Nico are off to a slow start, they don't have that pressure of being, with the higher coverage, because you're obviously going to go, covering the hot hand, which is Palmieri right now.
True.
So it actually gives them a little space. Sam.
Hey.
Awkward silence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was waiting for you guys to give me the cue so I can introduce our next guest. So sorry.
Well,
I didn't. I missed the signal.
You heard you jump in there. So unspoken words.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, maybe next time I should just shut off your mics and just go at it. Just interrupt your conversation.
As a producer, you have that power, which is kind of scary.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I just want to introduce our next guest. You know what? I never really told anybody this until this week, but I grew up, watching that 1988 team and the Devils making the playoffs for the first time in their history. To me, he will always be number 27. And I know there's a lot of people that, talk about Scott Niedermayer, but to me, he is number 27 for a variety of reasons. And that playoff run as an 8-year-old in 4th grade, that meant a lot to me. And that's a sentimental value. And in a lot of ways, just for me personally, if I ever owned the New Jersey Devils, he would have his name in the Ring of Honor, number 27, Randy Velischek, for all he's done. You look at his resume, radio color commentator, 96 to 2006 with both Mike Miller and John Hennessy, calling cups, Stanley Cups, just amazing. But also, I met him during that full 1-year lockout with the NHL lockout, and he couldn't have been more than just a gentleman, a great teacher, and ambassador of sport. Obviously, with my being a Morristown Beer alumni, I'm a little biased. I love what he did for the hockey program there. And right now, Randy is on the line with us on the Nova Product Design Hotline. Randy, we know that you're traveling up to Montreal right now, and I hope you're have 10 and 2 on the wheel right now. But thank you for taking the time for our podcast. Tough losses this weekend against the Minnesota Whitecaps. You're heading into Boston, playing the Pride next week. What did you tell the team after tonight, and how are you going to keep the team morale up and moving into a positive direction?
Well, first of all, hi, good evening. Is this Sam by any chance, or is it, who am I speaking with? Hi.
Oh, yeah, this is Sam Wu. Sorry. I thought you did.
Hi, Sam.
My bad.
Sam, first of all, thank you for all the kind words. First of all, that's very flattering. As far as the team goes, the post-game was a little bit of a toughie. You're always trying to stay positive. And honestly, like this weekend, of all the games that we've played, have probably been the most games we actually should have won in my mind. And I'm just trying to tell the players that I'm really not blowing smoke. I mean, the team definitely played well enough to win. At the end of the day, I mean, we had close to 30 shots in both games and lots of scoring opportunities. And you got to stay positive. At the end of the day, if you've got to come to the rink. We practice twice a week, and if you're going to get down this early in the season, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm trying to say all the right things, and for the most part, like I'm not blowing smoke. There are a lot of good things that happened. as of right now, we're having a really tough time scoring goals. But if you're coming into games and you're being blown out 10-0 and you're getting 3 or 4 scoring opportunities, that's one thing. But we had 6 or 7 good scoring opportunities in the first period today, and probably another 7 or 8 in the second. The wheels fell off on the third, but certainly from a coaching perspective and trying to keep the focus on the good things that are happening out there. As a coaching staff, Kate Whitman and myself we're happy with what happened in the 6 periods that were played. Actually, I'll say in the 5 periods that were played, because the last period tonight was a bit of a write-off.
So, Randy, how you doing? My name is Scott. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. Good luck. Good luck with the season and everything. I just have a quick question in regards to coaching the Riveters. Is there anybody on the team, and I guess this goes in any team that you have coached in the past, do you ever find a player on the team that kind of reminds you of yourself when you were playing?
It's interesting. I was speaking with my fiance in the car on the way up, and Michelle Shelley Picard has been she's the captain, and what she brings to the table at night in and night out. I met her for the first time in training camp. She's a Harvard grad, and I'd heard her name, and then I sort of looked her up a little bit. But even beyond that, just the way she presented herself on the ice. We had practices for about 2 weeks before I even knew all the players' names, and she stood out almost immediately in the first 2 practices, just by her work ethic and her just the way she conducted herself around her teammates. There was a professionalism about her, and the way she plays the game. She's not flashy. She's incredibly intense, and she makes her teammates better. And there's never any negatives. I've watched her the last 2 games as well, because we were in a 4-game tailspin, or 5-game, whatever, 3 or 4-game tailspin, and she probably had her 2 best games of the season. And she's walking down to the end of the players' bench where the forwards were sitting, and we were down a couple of goals. We were down a goal, and she was encouraging and saying all the right things on the bench, and it came from her heart. I would say she's the captain for a reason, and she has really a lot of positive attributes. Besides the fact that she's a great athlete, she's a terrific role model. She doesn't get down on herself, and she supports her teammates always. I'd say from that perspective, I really like what she brings to the table, and she has done so from the get-go, from the first time we set foot on the ice. And there's a reason she's been very successful in her college career as an Olympian, and there's a reason she's the captain of this hockey team.
Very cool.
Randy, this is Shorts Guy. Real quick, do you think teams are stepping up their game, knowing that you guys are the returning Cup champions, and now you are the team to beat? Do you find that teams are playing you harder and possibly gunning to make sure that they beat the current champions?
I'll be honest with you, only because I wasn't here last year and I really didn't know that much about the league. I knew there was professional women's hockey in the area, but I can tell you from everything I've heard so far is that the level of play is greatly enhanced. And if you have seen a game so far this year, I'm impressed with the level of hockey. Our first 2 games are out in Minnesota, and it's an expansion franchise. They're in their first year, and they do carry 3 or 4 of them that I'm not really. I got to know them when I was out there because I had to face them. The team had to face them, but the level of hockey. I'm sure being the defending Stanley Cup champs, gets somebody going. It's an opponent going, but that team and that Whitecaps team is just skilled. They're fast. They handle the puck really well. They do everything really well. Their goalie's excellent. From the back to the front, they're deep. Their third line is almost as good as their first. And I'm not sure if it's even a function of them being pumped to play Kessel and Picard and the defending champs. I think it's more a function of the level of hockey is just greater. The Boston team wasn't far behind. We played them as well, and they were an excellent club. They again, skating at the end of the day, just like the Devils and the NHL game, has become such a high priority, and it's really the it's the barometer where everybody's measured. And both these teams are excellent skating teams. And I can honestly say I don't know what they were last year, if they were as quick as these teams are. But that's I guess my answer to all this is that I partially I think it's the fact that the Riveters are defending champs, and also the fact that the level of play is just the bar has been set higher.
Sam's microphone isn't on, Randy. We apologize.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry
go.
about that, Randy. Randy, the 2017-2018 Isabel Cup team was recognized this past weekend. It was a really treat to see the amount of Riveters fans attending and the New Jersey Devils support. What I found astonishing was just how much the grassroots effort to promote this league and the game has become. I was watching YouTube Live. It was so nice to hear Sherry Ross and the live stream. Also, I saw all the girls. I wasn't sure if they were high school or middle school girls. Coming out to skate on the ice during intermission and meeting the players. It was really a nice thing to see. The fan support. I saw there was an autograph signing. Were there a lot of people there today just getting autographs? And you see a number of fans coming in consistently to the arena?
I can tell you, well, not only this weekend for the Riveters, but the first weekend in Minnesota, both games out there were sold out. It was stand room only, and probably over 2,500 fans. Boston was maybe a little bit less so, but it was also the Red Sox were playing that night. It was an evening game. Yesterday's game was, I know 1,500 tickets were sold, and probably another, I'm guessing 500 to 600 additional tickets were, people just came, and they might have been, friends and family in that, but I'd say there were easily 2,000 people there yesterday, and I'd say maybe 1,000 or 800 today. I'm not sure of the exact numbers. It's two different rinks. One was the Devils rink, and one was Barnabas today. The players always sign autographs after the game. Last Thursday, we had a practice out at Menin out in Morristown, and a lot of the players on our team actually had a history of playing for the Colonials. Some of the players got there early before practice, got dressed, and got onto the ice with some of the girls' teams that were practicing that night. So when you're talking about grassroots and getting giving back, Kira Dosdal is one of our alternate captains. She coaches with the Colonials, as does Audra Richards, and they both, they both asked, they asked some of their teammates if they come out to skate with the young ladies, ages 6 to 16, and 7 or 8 of them did. And I love the fact that there is, it's a growing sport, women's hockey, women's sports overall, but women's hockey definitely is. It's got to be one of the growth sports in this country. I just know I've been in hockey for so long now, and every rink that I'm at has the Colonials, the Montclair Blues, the Rockets. They all have a presence. The Devils now have a presence as well. The Junior Devils, they have a presence in the female hockey. So there's a lot of potential there. I love the fact that the girls are very, as much as they're professionals, but they're very attuned to the fans. They're always smiles on their faces. They're there to promote the game for the kids, and they'll sign up. They'll give high fives to all the kids that are beside the stands when you're walking out. You're much closer to the players at this level than you are at the NHL game for obvious reasons. It's a lot easier to get close to Amanda Kessel than because you can just meet her right when you walk out to the lobby at the rink at the Barnabas Center. It'd be a little different than meeting Taylor Hall. They park underneath, and it's a little bit tougher to get to meet these individuals. So I'd say overall it's been a revelation for me as a sort of on the outside looking in. I knew about the game, but I didn't really realize how much the women, how passionate the players are about the game, how professional they are, and how attuned they are to making sure that it's a good fan experience. My suspicion here is that the women's hockey, I'm guessing it's here to stay.
So hey, Randy, it's Scott again. I just wanted to say, first of all, one of our Facebook fans here, Gina Cordisco, if I said that right, she says hello, and her mother say hello.
Hi.
So one of the questions that I have for you is, looking back at your playing career and then looking at the NHL now, how do you think you would fare in how the game is played now? Do you with the kind of the rules and everything that has changed? I love listening to Ken Danico kind of wax poetically about this, about how it would be so much harder for a lot of the guys of that generation to be playing in the NHL now because you can't play the way that they used to play. How do you think you would fare in this day and age NHL?
I think Kenny and I would both be in trouble. We'd be watching from the stands. And there's no disrespect to Kenny. I shouldn't say that. Kenny was a first-round pick and 20-year pro. I think from my perspective, I was a relatively good skater, but the way the game was played, I'm sure, as you heard from Bruce Driver and Grant Marshall and Kenny, that the game was, there was a clutch and grab game, and there was so much hooking and holding. I remember playing Mario Lemieux in Pittsburgh, and we'd faced him 8 times a year, and you would get turned by him not once a game, but it would be 7 or 8 times where he would beat you one-on-one just because you weren't physically able to. You couldn't man up to him if you didn't hold him or hook him or put your stick between his legs. Interesting. You ask a really interesting comment because I think about it a lot because I do watch a fair amount of NHL hockey, and the speed and the skill has come such a long way. My suspicion is that I would probably get by simply because skating and I was a fairly good puck mover. It's a really difficult question. I know there's a whole bunch of players that I played with and against that wouldn't be able to make it in this era because once you got past the top 6 or 7 forwards in a lot of teams, it was a huge drop off. Now you can barely distinguish between the first line forward and the fourth line forward. There's so much speed and strength and skill, and the level. I'm sure you've heard this. The level of training is so far enhanced. Many of the players in my era just weren't in great shape. I played with fellows that had they had a tough time getting up and down the ice 3 or 4 times, and it was just a totally different era altogether. Just in the way that the players approached the game, the level of professionalism and the level of dedication. So I'd say, I guess, long story short, I believe I'd make it, but I certainly would be. I'd probably be a 6th, 7th defenseman in all likelihood. Realistically, I would love the challenge of it because again, usually what happens is you sort of pick up your game. The better player you play against, you usually have a tendency of raising the bar, raising your level of play. So I would say that I would love to be able to fast forward. Take all the years away. I'm 57 years old. I like to be a 27-year-old again to have a crack at it.
Randy, it's Shorts Guy again. So you said you still have a chance to watch a lot of NHL hockey. What are your thoughts on the current Devils team? And what do you first of all, how'd you think of last year's surprise playoff run, and then this year starting off as hot as they did? This past week excluded, obviously.
You know what? I was at training camp. I probably saw 6 of their pregame practices before they went to Europe, and all I can tell you is that John Hines does such an incredible job getting these players prepared. Every practice is, it's not that they're not that long. They're 45 or 50 minutes long, but they are so intense and they're so specific to what they're working on. I just love the amount of preparation. So I would say the reason they went 4-0, I know they've lost a couple right now. I think they're gonna have a terrific year just because they're so quick. They're incredibly skilled. I believe a couple of their top players right now are still not off to the best of starts. But once this all comes together, I think they're certainly I'd say they're in the top 10 in this league. And Taylor Hall being the player he is, Paul Mary having the start that he has, there's no reason that shouldn't keep up. I believe they have a really. I think they're gonna have a better year this year than last year. And I didn't see that. To me, it wasn't a surprise, simply because they're a great skating team, and they have an incredible work ethic, and they're very, very well coached. And coaching didn't mean as much in my era as it does now. Now the reason the coaches are paid a lot of money is because a lot is asked of them. And coaching, I really believe, You can have a ton of skill out there, but if everybody's not buying into a game plan, you're not going to be successful. John Hines, in my mind, is one of the best in the business, and he's got a lot of talent to work with.
Randy, I'm going to change gears here and go back to 1988. I've always wanted to ask this question, and it's kind of an odd question, but it goes back to the Jim Schoenfeld, Don Koharski have another donut incident, which is, infamous and people still talk about. But I always wanted to know that Game 4, the replacement refs, these were just New Jersey guys, if I'm not mistaken, called in at a moment's notice for that Game 4. And I mean, as a player, my first question is, what were you guys thinking? And were you guys giving them a little bit of leeway, considering that they were put in a tough spot, although it was the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bruins? And secondly, with you being in New Jersey hockey, do you keep in touch with these referees? Where are they nowadays?
I believe Paul. I have a tough time with names, unfortunately. Paul McGinnis is one of them, I believe, and I've known him a long time. I believe he's well. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. There's another fellow that actually plays, I believe, at the Essex Hunt Club, and I used to see him over at Twin Oaks Ice Rink over in Morristown. And for the life of me, I can't recall his name, but they're still around. And I mean, that's that episode, and it'll go down. I mean, if you look back on this, it's surreal that ever happened. Ironically, somebody made a tape of that entire series for me, and they sent it to me, and I used to have it on 8-track or whatever, and they redid it on CDs. And I was on a bus with a group of fellows, and we were watching, and the CBC Canada was actually broadcasting this, and they turned it into a bit of a soap opera. If you guys get your hands on this, it's absolutely worth it. They made it, as the world turns, like one of those, CBS,
yeah,
or NBC, daytime, whatever those are called, those soap operas, and they turned it into this. And they, again, looking back at it, as a player, you're sitting there and you're, again, part of this, my memory fails me on some of this, but I remember it was such a surreal feeling because I don't think we played until I think we sat for an hour and a half. A lot of us didn't think the game played, and then ultimately it was. But now you're out there with individuals that are, first of all, these guys were older, they didn't skate that well, they were certainly out of their element. Yet the level of respect that both teams showed them, from what I recall, I don't think there were a lot of hits, a lot of checks being thrown, and I can't imagine there was a lot of shenanigans being. It was a very subdued affair, simply because it was just so out of the ordinary, and a lot of the emotion in those playoff games is usually you get there and the fans come into the building and it's 20,000 strong, but this was such a, everybody sort of sat there and they sat on their hands for so long, so it never really got to that frenzied pitch that you usually see in the playoffs. I think the next game, though, was back in Boston, if I recall, and that was an absolute war. I remember there must have been 3 or 4 fights in the first period and a half, and I think it was all of that pent-up emotion that wasn't vented in the first, that game that we played at the Meadowlands, being vented up and way back to the Boston Garden. But certainly from a player's perspective, it was like, how can this happen? It's like, wow.
So, Randy, one of the last questions I have for you is, we talked about just, how you would fare in the NHL if you were in the NHL now. What is it? You say you watch a lot of games and things like that, and what are some things that you notice about the game that is drastically different? I know you said there's a lot of clutching and things like that when you played, but outside of that, is it just the scores seem to be crazy, first of all, but is it just the speed of the game that is making everything kind of the way it is, or is something different?
The skating of it, I mean, it runs the gamut. We had players in our lineup that, again, and I played with a 20-year veteran, and I don't want to name any names, but I remember being a rookie. He was in the league for 15 years at this point. I remember I was a left-handed shot, and so was he. And I remember he'd been in the league for, I don't know, a long time. and he goes, I don't play the right side. You got to play the right side of the ice. Yeah, I mean, I look at it nowadays. Like, if you're a defenseman, you can play backhand, forehand. It honestly doesn't matter. But in that era, there were so many skills that were just lacking. Like, a lot of guys were not comfortable on their backhand. This fellow couldn't really handle a pass on his backhand coming out of the zone, or when you had to pinch in at the blue line. So just from a skill perspective, that everybody now handles the puck equally well, forehand and backhand. Everybody can shoot the puck. I played with Craig Hartsburg, and he was the captain in Minnesota my first couple of years in the league. And Craig was one of our power play guys. He had 50, 60, 70 points a year, but his point shot he was a quarterback on the power play. The puck literally hardly got there, it wasn't a very hard shot. It was one of those little. It wasn't a Zdeno Chara 100-mile-an-hour cannon, or a Al McInnes, or a Taylor Hall. These guys are all shooting the puck at 85 to 95 miles an hour. So the whole shooting perspective was so different. Like, very few guys could really tee it up. Like, you'd have no problem getting in front of a lot of shots. Like, Wayne Gretzky didn't have a great slap shot. Now everybody can absolutely blast it and score and take one-timers from everywhere. You didn't see as many one-timers in that era. It was no comparison. The level of passing, like, when you watch the guys pass, and if you ever go to a practice, you watch how hard the passes are, so crisp and so hard, and they're so easily handled. And I know in our era, there was the puck never moved around the way it does now. So they just every aspect of the game, lateral motion for the defenseman. There were so few guys that could literally. When you watch Scott Niedermayer skate, and he's obviously a couple of years out of the league, but really the whole league looks like that now. And Scott Niedermayer, in my mind, is one of the best skating defensemen that ever played the game. Everybody looks like that at all levels, and every forward can skate backwards almost as well as the defenseman can, which is also a revelation. We had a lot of guys that struggle on their going backwards that were forwards. He imagines Esposito. I mean, guys like that just zooming backwards into the zone to play, to cover up for the D. Like, it just doesn't. It didn't happen in that era. So a lot of the guys were a lot more one-dimensional, where everybody now has every dimension. They possess every skill you need to be an all-around, to be a successful hockey player. Because if you don't have it, you're not going to last. Simple as that.
So, Randy, you've been a player at the NHL level. You're currently a coach. You've worked on the radio. You've done commentary. What's your favorite aspect? I'm assuming I know what the answer is, but maybe it'll surprise me. What's your favorite aspect of being involved in the game that you've been, over the course of your whole life?
Being a player was because when you're in it, you don't realize how special it is. Sometimes you have to sit back once you're out of it to realize how fortunate you've been, and to be part of that whole fraternity. I think it's the same now. A lot of the players, they don't realize that when you're actually performing, I don't believe you're aware as when you're looking back. Jim Schoenfeld, who coached me, and I played against him as well. He's our coach in Minnesota, in New Jersey during that playoff run, and he coached me a couple of years. He told me something after a game. He said, he played in the league for 13 or 14 years, and he goes, winning a game as a coach is a better feeling than winning a game as a player. And I didn't believe it because I was a player at the time. But in retrospect, I did coach for 10 years at the high school level, and I'm coaching here now with the ladies, the Riveters. Haven't won a game, so I don't know what that emotion actually is yet. But at the end of the day, there is something to be said about putting a game plan together and having your team, follow through and do what's asked of them. And when you make a decision that has an impact on the outcome of a game, it's a special feeling as a coach. So I would say, like, only because my playing days are so far behind me, it's sort of hard to remember what it was actually like in that era. The coaching is very, very it's very rewarding, and even win or lose, like you end up developing relationships with players, and there's something to be said about giving something back to players at any level, whether they're toddlers or they're 5, 6, 7-year-old mites, or it's professional women who are in their mid-20s and who are at the peak of their game. So I would say, certainly from right now, the coaching aspect is very it's exciting, and it is rewarding, and you're always learning. That's one thing. I'm always learning. You're watching tape, and you're watching what the players are doing out there, and it's a lot of fun to always. You always want to get better. So that pretty much answers it. I love the coaching part of it. Obviously, not winning has its it's hard on the ego a little bit, and it's hard emotionally at times. But you move forward, and you come back for the next one, prepare better for the next game.
Speaking of coaching, Randy, before we let you go, as I said it before, I am a Morristown Beard alumni, and I thank you for what you've done for the program. When you guys won in 2014 as co-champions at the Prudential Center, I couldn't have been more ecstatic. When I travel for business, I'm a very, very pro Morristown Beard Crimson alumni, and all they talk about is Delbarton. And I'll be a little bit careful here because I know your son graduated from Delbarton, but that rivalry is one of the rivalries that the hockey rivalry is so intense. I thought 94 Menin Cup finals when Delbarton and Morristown Beard went into 2 overtimes and shared the Menin Cup, and they both skated with the Menin Cup on the ice. That was probably the best high school game I've ever seen in my life. 97, the year I graduated, George Paros was in the lineup, and then unfortunately Morristown Beard, lost that game, I believe in overtime to Delbarton. But to have that championship in 2014, very ecstatic. And anytime I go on business trips, and they always mention about Delbarton, I always say, and this is a true story, I don't know if you know about this, if it wasn't for Morristown School back in the Depression, there would be no Delbarton, because it was actually the Morristown School that raised funds to keep Delbarton afloat and alive, and to the school it's today. And most people don't know about that, but the rivalry continues, and I think it was just a great thing.
That's a terrific piece of history that I was unaware of. Wow, I didn't.
Oh,
I know there were great games. There were some great games played in the past. I know Paros played. Obviously, he was a Delbarton player. I was unaware of the history of. I know that the rivalry between the two teams goes back a lot of years. For a number of years, the rivalry sort of went out the window simply because Bruce Chattel and the school, they were just so much. They just accumulated so much talent over there. It was really hard to compete. But I really believe in the last couple of years that the playing field is leveled. Simply, a lot of the top players are actually leaving the state right now, and many of them elect not to either play prep school hockey or play junior hockey, and they elect not to play high school hockey. But I'd say right now, there's no reason that rivalry should not be and go back to what it was. Simply because I think that the nucleus of the Mulbeard team this year is it looks pretty strong, and I believe Delbarton's nucleus is probably maybe not as strong as it has been in the past. I know we faced them last year in the playoffs, the semifinals, and it ended up, it was the shots were not necessarily indicative, but it was a relatively close game, and I think it was a 3-2 game at the end of the day. So it's those games. I wish there were more of them. Ultimately, it's too bad that they're only played for the most part now. It looks like they're only played if you match up in the postseason. But it's I appreciate you mentioning that little piece of history, because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely talk maybe offline. I got some more history for you, but thank you for coming on to the Let's Go Devils podcast, Randy, and taking the time as you're going up to Montreal. Please drive safe, and let's go Devils, Riveters, and Crimson. Thank you, Randy.
A pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
That was Randy Velischek. Guys, that was awesome. That was awesome. I love Randy.
Awesome. That was cool.
I was able to ask my usual odd questions in there. And he's such a polite gentleman, and he's really a great ambassador of the sport, and especially in New Jersey. And all my Morristown beer references, you'll hear it from time to time. I had such a good time there. I'm not going to lie, but let me tell you something about George Paros. He was 6'4" back then. back when he was in Del Barton. Like I think either a sophomore or junior. He was huge, and admittedly in my mind, I'm like, oh, look at that. The guy thinks he's Mr. NHL, and boy, was I wrong.
That was one dude. That was one dude that I always wish that the Devils would have gotten, is George Parros.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, that was pretty sweet, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Because of this podcast, I'm talking to people, I never thought I'd talk to. Although I have met Randy before, along my coaching road as well. He was at the up here at our rink, Skylands, at one point, and he was just such a nice guy when I met him in person. And he was willing to lend a hand if I needed it or whatever. He was just a really great guy. So he's definitely a great ambassador for the sport. I can't say enough about him. Just like Sam was. It's he was just an awesome dude to meet.
Yeah, and the way that Sam opened up the interview was he kind of echoed all of our sentiments about how we feel about Randy. And although the one thing that Sam did say, the whole 27 thing, I don't know, man. I just I love Randy. I think he's amazing, but I think of 27, I think of the Devils, and I think of Scotty Niedermayer. So, and also we want to say what's up to all of our friends over in the Facebook group. George, thank you very much. Everybody else that's been chiming in, thank you.
Oh no, Sam!
I gotta cut in before I get Rob Brender of SiriusXM Sports. It was sentimental because that team meant a lot to me because they represented New Jersey in hockey. I admittedly, it wasn't. I knew Scott Niedermayer was a great player, but as wearing number 27 when he scored that goal in Game 2 in the '95 Cup Finals against the Red Wings, that's where my respect level went higher. But it wasn't until he wasn't truly a Devil to me until I think he re-signed his contract in that preseason game against the Rangers when he kicked that jersey, and he was so mad. I think with Valerie Kamensky.
Awesome I do love that picture.
Yeah, that's when Scott Niedermayer to me was a New Jersey Devil. But up until that time, it was all Randy Velischek and number 27. I just wanted to put that in, but I really got to get Rob on, so I'll
all right, you go
bring
make
it back
a phone
to you
call.
guys.
You go make a phone call.
Yeah, no, it's true. That picture, by the way, is hands down one of my all-time favorite pictures of any Devil. And if you're a Devils fan, you know exactly what we're talking about.
I have a gem of a picture of me with a Ranger jersey. That I will make sure that we post about the time that around the time that we play them. We may have posted it before, but now that our Facebook group is bigger, I think the eyes of the world that we have as our in our group need to see it again. So I'll make sure that gets posted right before we play against the Rangers coming up.
By the way,
let's.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say let's. All right, you talk, then me. How about that? Done. Go.
I was going to say, by the way, the games, they don't play until Thursday. I just wanted to kind of jump back into talking about the season that we are kind of have going on right now.
All right, me too, because so we're on the same page. So let's do this.
100%, yes. So they're playing again this Thursday. They're playing Nashville. It's going to be another big test. The beginning of the season, they're not playing any kind of like low-level teams, and they've been handling themselves pretty well. The first 4 games, they went as well as anybody could ask for, including going overseas, winning the game overseas, and then coming back home, and facing the Capitals and having to, deal with the defending Stanley Cup champions who put up 13 goals in 2 games at that point. So they came back did well, and they played those first 4 games that were fantastic. In that Stars game, they looked probably the best that I've seen, the best that they've looked out of those 4 games. So it was like, it was interesting to see what happened in that Colorado game, and something that we didn't really talk about in the very beginning because we were just going through and getting to do what we have to do. But I didn't realize how big Colorado's lineup is, right? And then you look at the Philadelphia lineup, and they got some pretty big bodies in that lineup too. And it seemed like last year that was a theme for the Devils, is they always struggled against the bigger body teams, and they try to use their speed against a bigger team. But a lot of the times, like when they were getting beat to the pucks, and then they were just, going into corners and just getting beaten up and just kind of like, not winning those one-on-one battles. And I wonder if that has to do with the size of Colorado's team or the size of Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's definitely got to play a factor into that. Unfortunately, I listened to a lot of those 2 games on the radio, so I didn't get to actually watch and see those puck battles happen, and it's tough to watch on your phone too. So, when you're outside, when you're outmatched on size like that, your speed's great, and then those puck battles on the boards, if you don't have the size, you're gonna win some, but you may not win all. So, Sam, I hear you come back. And now I'm introducing you, Sam. Welcome.
Oh, great. well, thank you for the cue, Shorts guy. I mean, I need that Sam. Transition. I really need that transition because, our next guest, I was talking to him offline, off the Nova Product Design hotline, and I like him already. He's really cool. Rob Brender of the SiriusXM Sports. He's a sports reporter there. He's covering the World Series very soon, shortly. And you can find him on Twitter at Robert Brender. Rob, the Devils right now, and I know you're a big Devils fan. The Devils right now, they started off 4-0. We were on this probably this most unrealistic high for Devils fans, thinking we're going 82-0-0. The last 2 games, again, 2 losses, but the score wasn't really reflective of how close they were because of these empty net goals. Do you see they just lost their hockey sense just a little bit from the first 4 games? And the other thing too is it just seems like their breakouts weren't as crisp as what John Hines actually mentioned in the press conference afterwards. Do you think it was just a little bit of a letdown that it's going to be correctable by Thursday?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember Keith Kincaid saying after the loss to Colorado that, hey, we can't win them all. It's how you bounce back. And then we saw how they bounced back against Philadelphia. Granted, they were a little bit shorthanded that day. But still, not a great effort in either game. And boy, look, I think that Colorado team is really good. I think they're underrated. Obviously, they made that run to the postseason last year, so they're capable of putting out an effort like we saw against the Devils. But to get blown out the way that they were, that was really disappointing, especially on home ice. Colorado was on a long East Coast trip and really were the much better of the 2 teams. I mean, dramatically better. That was what was most disappointing about that game. And then you go into Philadelphia, and as I said, if they were trying to bounce back and show that game was just an aberration, they certainly didn't do a great job of it. The puck control and the offensive zone time wasn't there. The face-off percentage was brutal. I mean, they were beaten out. Granted, again, Travis Zajak's not playing, and he's probably their best face-off guy, but still, to get dominated in the circle like that, and Nolan Patrick obviously scores the goal where he beats Hischier to the spot. That was really tough to watch, I'm sure, not just for Hischier, but for all Devil fans. So, yeah, look, it's going to happen in the course of the season. You're going to play pretty good teams. Those are both good teams. They're going to both be in the running for the postseason this year. So to lose to those teams, not really the worst thing in the world. It's not like you're losing back-to-back to, Buffalo and Ottawa. So better teams than that, but still, you'd like better effort from this team. And hopefully, as John Hines said, they're going to get back to work. They have 3 full days of practice before they get back at it again on the ice, and hopefully they can put it all together again.
Hey, Rob, how you doing, man? This is Scott. First of all, I have to thank you so much for coming on tonight, and thanks, Scotty, for thank you for being buddies with my buddy Scotty, who I've known for a very long time.
I don't know if that's good for one of us, to be honest with you.
Nah, Scotty's a good guy. He's a good guy. But you nailed it on the head about how their play was in Philadelphia, especially not having any offensive zone time at all. It seemed like every time they brought the puck in, they were getting the puck taken right out, and then Philadelphia would go into their zone and just basically control the puck. At some points, it seemed like there was reminiscent of the Devils from 2 years ago where they just couldn't get it out of the zone at all. What do you think the team needs to do if Zajac is not going to be ready for Thursday or for an extended period of time? Who do you think they should bring up, or what do you think they should do kind of rectify that hole in the lineup?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that he's replaceable in their lineup. He's such a great leader, obviously, in the room, and his face-off work, his ability to kill penalties if you want to use him there. He can also be used on the power play. They don't exactly have a great secondary power play unit. But I don't know that there's a guy. I mean, Quinville, I was expecting a little bit more from him. Obviously, they've taken him out of the lineup already because they weren't pleased with his productivity. Not necessarily his effort, it sounds like, but just the overall productivity wasn't there. I don't know that you can dip down and find anybody that can replace Zajac at this point. I'm curious, and I've said this, actually, it's funny because Scott and I will talk about this in the office all the time, that I just didn't think coming into the season, off of a season last year where you made the playoffs, that they did a whole lot to improve the roster offensively, to find some scoring punch. Now, I know it's a rebuild, and I know you want to prepare yourself for long-term success, if at all possible, but they didn't go out and add any scoring at all. And I know you have Taylor Hall, and you have Heischer, and you have Paul Merritt. That's a great top line. I know they broke them up for the last game, but still a good top line when they're together. But beyond that, yeah, Johansson might score, 15, 20 goals this year. That would be fantastic. But there isn't a whole lot of scoring depth. They need Jesper Bratt back in the worst way. And I don't know, maybe you guys have more of an update than I do as to when that's going to happen. I know he's coming back from the injury. So, yeah, if they can get him back and he can produce like he did in the first quarter of last season, that would be a nice punch for them. Maybe, just maybe, if they're in the race, Shiro can go out and find somebody in trade sometime before the deadline. Obviously, William Nylander hasn't agreed to his deal with Toronto, and there's all sorts of rumors that they'd be willing to deal him. I don't think they will. I actually had Joe Bowen on my hockey show for the Tampa Bay Lightning this past week, and he said I would doubt that they're going to wind up dealing him. It would be very, very difficult for them to swallow that, especially with a brand new general manager in place. But that's the kind of guy that if you can go out and add him to your lineup, boy, you're going to be good. Now you're going to have to give up a boatload to get him. But, man, that would really improve your offensive punch. But in the short term, like I said, if they can get Bratt back, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's funny. Somebody in our Facebook group, they just said Panarin, but the Panarin would be the same thing. You'd have to give up a boatload, and there's no guarantee he'd want to sign back. He'd probably end up being with the New York Rangers because supposedly he has a love affair with, going across the river.
The rumor is, and what I've been hearing about him, and you guys probably see the same things that I do on television and read, that he's not going to sign no matter where he is, that he wants to get the free agency, even if he's traded. And even if he was traded to a team that he might like, he still wants to test the market, it sounds like, and speaking of Panarin. So, that's the case where I'm not going to go out and give up major assets for a guy on a loaner deal. And if that's the case, nobody should. I mean, Columbus is in a really, really difficult spot. They're a good team. They're probably as good, if not better, than the Devils right now on paper. They're a team that obviously can get in the playoffs as they did last year. They took Washington to the brink of elimination. They came really a goalpost away from eliminating them. So it's a great team. Panarin's their best player. Bobrovsky's also going to be a free agent, and I don't know if they can sign him. That is a tough spot. I can't imagine being a general manager in that spot where you don't know, your guy's not going to sign there. You want to get something back, but you also want to try to win in a town that doesn't have a winner yet. And what do? Do you hold on to him? Do you try to trade him away and get something back? And if you do trade him away, and those other teams are saying, well, he's not going to sign with us, we're not going to give you a lot back. That's a difficult balance. Really tough.
Rob, it's Shorts Guy. Kind of going off what you were saying before, if you would have asked me in August, especially after the quiet summer the Devils had, I would absolutely take a 4-2 start at this point. Kind of very happy with the way Keith Kincaid has started, but in the background you have Corey Snyder getting his first reps in net in an actual game in a very since the playoff run. What do you see as going forward? The goalie dilemma. We happen to talk about it all the time as myself as a former goalie as well. What do you see as the Devils? Is there a solution to this goalie dilemma? Do you wind up trading one? Do you go with the hot hand? Do you have a 1 and a 1A? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, isn't it? If you can have both of them playing well. And I actually had Ken Danico on my show this past week, and I asked him that same question. What do you do? Especially if Keith Kincaid continues to play fairly well, if not really well. I mean, great during the 4-game win streak. Not so great the last 2 games. I don't blame him by any means. But If he's going okay, and then you get Corey Schneider back, what do you do? And he said, yeah, you just play the hot hand at that point. If one guy stumbles, the other guy comes in and plays well, then that's the guy that earns playing time. I agree with him. It's a great problem to have. And unless one guy clearly separates himself as the 1A and the other one becomes the backup, and there's a desperate need for goaltending around the league where you can then go out and trade for a defenseman who can give you some scoring punch, because they certainly don't have a whole lot of that on their blue line, or you can trade for a forward that can give you some punch as well offensively, then maybe you think about making a trade like that. But, Corey Schneider, that's a real dilemma for them. They gave him some money. He's not exactly being paid peanuts. It's kind of like Corey Crawford right now with the Blackhawks, coming back off a couple of years of major injury issues and surgeries. For Crawford, it's a concussion this time. Where do you go there? You got Cam Ward playing pretty well, but you want Crawford in the lineup. It's probably easier to justify putting Crawford back in there with all the Stanley Cup history for him. But at 33 years old, that's a tough move. And kind of the same thing, I guess, with the Devils, where you got this guy, you want him to be your number one. I think they prefer Kincaid to be the backup, but, if Kincaid outplays him, so be it. Play your hot hand. But great to have, if you can have two goaltenders going as a 1A, 1B as compared to a number one and a number two, I think that'd be a great problem.
Rob, we're looking at our Facebook Live. Eric Burns had a question for everybody. Do you think our talent pool is kind of shallow as far as depth of our talent? To be honest with you, as far as being a Stanley Cup contending team, do they have the talent to get there? I don't see it. I don't know if you guys do. They have a nice start. I love what Ray Shero has done to this point. The cupboard was bare when he took over. John Hines was the perfect hire to motivate these guys. I think a perfect guy to have behind the bench. Tremendous coach. But when it comes to overall talent offensively, especially, it's clearly not up to the level of the Capitals or the Penguins or the Lightning in the Eastern Conference, even the Bruins maybe, although they're off to a tough start. But Taylor Hall is the MVP. He's our trophy winner. That's great. And Nico Hischier is only going to get better. Still such a young guy. Put on some body weight this offseason, which is nice to see, some muscle mass. He'll wind up scoring his 20-plus goals, I think, and Kyle Palmieri scoring the 7 goals in, 4 games was great to see. So you have some scoring punch on that top line, but again, I don't see it. As far as the depth beyond that, Johansson's a nice second liner. Miles Wood's a fine player, especially for a third-line guy, or if you had him on a fourth line on a really good team, you'd love to have Miles Wood. But as a second-line guy, I don't know if he's really qualified for that. And again, you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference. As far as the top teams, where do the Devils match up with Toronto, with the Lightning, with Washington, with Pittsburgh, those kind of clubs, even with Columbus if they hold on to Panarin? I don't know if you guys see it differently, but I just don't see that quality of talent there.
I totally agree. And I hate to say it because, being that I bleed black and red, you don't often want to put down your own team, but that is true. I mean, you look at teams like Toronto and they're so unbelievably stacked up, especially up front. Same thing with Tampa Bay, and the level of talent that Tampa Bay has, throughout their lineup is incredible. My question is my feeling is that they're going to contend for a playoff spot, but I don't know how much further they're going to be able to go unless Ray makes some, 1-for-1 deals like he did with Larson and Hall.
You can only do that again.
I know, seriously. Do you see any kind of free agent signings maybe coming this summer? I know Everly is going to be a free agent coming out of the Islanders, and he's best friends with Taylor Hall. So it would be a nice fit. It would be, add to the scoring punch. Let's say the season kind of rolls out and they end up going into the first round and being eliminated. Is there something that you see in the horizon that could help bolster this lineup?
Wasn't Everly best friends with John Tavares too? At some point, I think that I heard that.
At some point.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that he wants to join up with best friends all the time. They're going to have to make a move at some point. And I know, and you guys hear the same thing I do again, when it comes to salary cap space and you want to be able to sign Taylor Hall, of course, that should be priority number one. And you have to be able to sign Nico Hischier, and you're going to have to be able to sign some of their other players. Will Butcher is eventually going to need a new contract here. So, yeah, you have to save money for those guys, and that should be priority number one. But again, if the idea was going into this season, and forget next season even, but this season, you wanted to take another big step or at least another small step forward. They didn't make an acquisition to do that. And yeah, they're justifying it by saying, well, Marcus Johansson missed most of last year with the concussion issues and with the injuries, and so he's really our acquisition. Well, all right, fine. I sort of get that, and I'll play along with that, and I do think Johansson's a nice player. But you didn't really do anything else. There was no other big move. So, okay, we'll call this another growing year. We'll keep the same roster together. We'll let these guys try to make another run at a playoff spot. And then next year, that's the year we're really going to probably go for it. So if they don't, what are you doing? You know, you have Taylor Hall there. He's only going to be really good for so long, right? You don't want to waste his years away. And what if he doesn't re-sign with you because he doesn't see you going out and making other moves and bringing another talent? I'm not saying that that's going to happen. He might love New Jersey. Sounds like he does love New Jersey, which is great for us. Hopefully he wants to stay forever, the rest of his career. I doubt he wants to relocate again, but who knows? Who knows? I'm sure he wants to win. And if he says, all you're giving me right now is my wingman, Nico Hischier, and what else is around us, if I'm him, I'm seriously going to think about leaving in a couple of years, especially next offseason. So, you know, we'll see how things go. Maybe it's Eberle, like you said. Maybe it's somebody else. I would love to see them go sign Panarin. I mean, if he winds up in New Jersey, that would be the best possible thing for the Devils because he puts the puck in the net. Or if Toronto does have to make some moves, because, you know, Toronto, with their salary cap situation now, they're going to have to look to sign Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner this offseason. And those guys are going to be 1A and 1B, and William Nylander's been holding out right now because he wants that deal. Somebody isn't going to get their contract, and somebody's going to have to go. I would love to see the Devils cherry pick on one of those guys. And we haven't even mentioned the blue line. I mean, the Devils on the blue line, you guys see what I see. Sammy Vatanen's been a warrior back there, played 30 minutes with the Fantini injury in the Philadelphia game, and that was great. And he's a nice offensive defenseman, moves the puck well. Butcher's great, moves the puck well. Andy Green's an aging defenseman. And what do you have behind them? I mean, Ben Lovejoy, sorry to Ben, no offense, but, you know, that's not good enough. And we don't know what Fantini is at this point. I mean, they need some help on the blue line, too. So there's a lot of different things I think this team needs to do to get better.
And Rob, I think we learned last year that anyone is tradable. You know, we saw that with the Henrique trade, that anyone was tradable. But I think the Devils' advantage is going to lie with the cap space because just like you were saying, there are going to be teams that are going to be strapped and have to get rid of players or let players walk because they don't have the space. And as long as we re-sign our guys that we need to, I still think we'll have the space to improve where we have to. And then obviously Shiro is willing to send anyone out the door if it's going to mean, as a whole, making the Devils as a better team.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. 100%. That cap space is a tremendously valuable asset, but you can only have cap space for so long. So maybe they do find that deal. Now you're right. When you go to these teams, a lot of times, and you'll find deals, you can Google all the deals where it was 1-for-1s, or guys just being willing to kind of get shipped off so that these teams can have salary cap relief. You can find a deal like that. That may exist, and that's where you have to just trust in Ray Shero. You trust in everything he does putting this thing together. He knows the talent. He understands what's going to be available. And so every time, it's funny, maybe you guys have the same issue, but, I get caught as a fan, especially in the off season, when I don't see the team go ahead and make a move, and you see Erik Karlsson get traded, and you say, my team needs help on the blue line. Why didn't we go after Erik Karlsson? And you get really depressed or pissed off about it. And then you realize later on, well, maybe Karlsson wasn't willing to take a trade to New Jersey, and maybe they just didn't want to make that move now because they knew he wouldn't sign with them later. So that's where I say to myself, gosh, I just trust in Ray Shero. Know that he's going to make the best decision for the organization going forward. He knows what guys are going to be available for less. He knows who the right fit is and who the right players are for the team. So I think to myself, that's the best way to do it. Trust in Ray Shero and go with that.
Rob, before we let you go, we really thank you for coming on to our podcast.
No worries, man.
Right now that you're covering the World Series, Red Sox, Dodgers, it seems to look like a classic. Now, are you actually traveling and covering both, all these games, or are you just staying in LA?
No, I'll just be in LA. I'll get the games out here like I did through the NLDS and NLCS, and I had both teams locally, the Dodgers and Angels, during the regular season. I actually host over on SiriusXM MLB Network Radio on Saturdays and Sundays, and do a bunch of reporting for them and anchoring for them during the week. So for the most part, I have to be here anyway to do all the different hosting stuff that I'm doing. And I also cover the NFL for our NFL channel. So I've got the Rams and I've got the Chargers during all their home games for them on our Sunday afternoon show. So traveling, unfortunately, isn't something that I'm able to do. And it's actually okay right now because my wife is almost ready to have our first child. So if I left the house...
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. To travel around the country, I don't think it'd be the right time. But I'm happy to get the home game, so I'll be there on Friday and excited for it. I think it's going to be a really good World Series, two really good teams.
Yeah, definitely.
I started to jump in, but as a father of two, I had to keep muting my mic because my two girls are both awake, unfortunately, in the other room. So let me tell you, Rob, get as much sleep as you can now because it's going to be over. It's going to be over. You're not going to know what sleep is anymore.
It's a nightmare. I've heard. I'm sure that everything else is great.
It is. It is.
Well, thank you, Rob, for coming on. That is Rob Brender. You could reach him at, you could follow him on Twitter at Rob Brender. Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, real good guy. And you can tell he loves the Devils. Just from the way he speaks about the team. Yeah, he loves this team. And he has the same belief that we do at this podcast, and we've talked about it a bunch of times. Just trust the process. Trust the process. So it's not just us speaking about trusting the process. Everyone, others are getting it as well. But yeah, real good guy.
Yeah, it's he has a lot of really good insight on just kind of like how the Devils are structured, and I feel like he nailed it in a few points of just like there's certain things that you need this team to get, and having all that cap space and all that kind of stuff is great, but Rob said it the best. If we don't surround Taylor Hall with a bunch of different stuff, or a bunch of different players that are going to actually, help him produce and help this team produce and move forward, how long, is he going to stay? He's saying all the right things now, but we've kind of heard that lip service in the past where, we love it here. This is my hometown. This is where I want to be, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, they're like, I'm going home to play my home state. Like, oh,
yeah.
Shoot. All right.
Yeah, we don't want any of that. And Rob's right. You do have to surround him, but it's got to be surrounded with the right guys because he was surrounded with a lot of talent in Edmonton. And what did Edmonton do that time he was there? Nothing. They made the playoffs that 1 year that he came here. His first year here, they made the playoffs, and they still can't do anything. So it's not just surrounding him with talent because he was surrounded by a ton of talent there. It's surrounding him with the right talent at the right time that want the right thing and have the same team mindset. So there's a lot to it, and it's got to be all of the right talent at the right time.
It does.
Shorts guy, I got to interrupt. We're up against the clock right now, but we got to do the drawing. We got to do the drawing.
Oh yeah. So for anyone who did not know, we were doing a giveaway for hitting over 100 followers or subscribers on YouTube. So thank you to everyone who subscribed. I was overwhelmed with the amount of people that did it. So I don't know if we can hear this sound clip. Spinning.
Beer Baron, make some spinning sounds. Oh, let's do the
okay.
Here.
All right, so you couldn't hear it. All right. But we do we did come up with a winner. So let me just go back to that. I went away from the screen real quick. Drum roll. Someone do a drum roll, please. And we will post this everywhere that we can so that everyone knows who the winner is. However, the winner is Lauren Liff. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Lauren. So, Lauren, you have won a free Let's Go Devils podcast t-shirt for being one of the people to get us over, one of our fans and viewers to get us over 100 on YouTube. So thank you, Lauren. We will somehow get in touch with you. We'll post it everywhere and just reach out and we'll send it out to you. So Lauren Liff wins our free t-shirt for being over 100 YouTube subscribers. I do plan on having more contests. It's fun. It's fun doing these contests.
Yeah, we got to thank Rob Klabosis for helping us out for pushing that pushing that because he's a big fan of the podcast. He wants us to also to sell T-shirts for our infamous $35 million jet. That one we want to purchase so we could, like we could have used this private jet and flew to Philly, and we could have.
been sorely disappointed.
Yeah, we could have, we could have taken
We would have
gritty.
been flying on a private jet back. We could have just got really drunk and forgotten about the game.
Yeah, that's true. I'll tell you what, when I win the Mega Million, I'm a billionaire, we'll have a fleet.
I like that idea better.
That's a lot of T-shirts that you're going to have to buy.
No,
Oh,
no.
yeah.
Hey, man, when I'm a billionaire with the Mega Millions, we'll just get 3 of them, and then we'll have our own little fleet that we fly to each game.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Play the Top Gun music the whole time.
Oh,
Highway to the danger zone. Great.
well, I guess next week we'll do the injury report. We're running out of time here.
Cool.
So.
We can give you a quick one. You can give it a quick rundown. It's we don't really know what's going on with Travis, but Santini's got a broken jaw. Brad's got a broken jaw. He should be coming back soon. Schneider should be coming back soon. He's on assignment. This is a very fast injury report. So expect Schneider to be back within the next week. It's there's a lot of crazy things. Zajac is the one that is kind of looming. So I guess we'll know more by Thursday because if he's not in the lineup, it's not like the NFL where they're like, this guy's got a tweaked toe, so he's out for 6 months. The NHL, they're very close to the vest where things happen. And I'll tell you what, if you watch that game again, you hear him yell out in pain. And you just hope that it's not the same Achilles that he blew out.
Yeah.
So nothing but the best because we really need him. We need him back in the lineup.
Definitely. Well, this was a great podcast. This is a double whammy. We got 2 great guests.
Mm-hmm.
Randy
Very much.
Velischek,
Yeah, very awesome.
Rob Brender, a new friend of the show. I like him. I'm going to reach out to him later. They will probably both get the Let's Go Devils podcast T-shirt that's right behind me over there. We'll have to reach out to them. I'd like to also thank our friends at Nova Product Design for the Nova Product Design hotline, having the ability to bring our guests onto our show. That's a big thing. And we'd like to thank you, the subscribers, the people that follow us, the people that like us, the people that comment on the most commented Devils podcast in the history of New Jersey Devils podcast. We thank you. We'll be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern, Sunday 9 p.m. Eastern for Season 2, Episode 8. And we'll be on social media for the next 6 days, pumping up that podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations to Laura Lift. We'll reach out to you. You just won a free Let's Go Devils t-shirt.
And I have to say really quick, I've been following her on social media for quite some time, and her story is absolutely incredible. If you haven't checked it out, I implore anybody that's a Devils fan to go check it out as I break something in the room. Yeah, so it's awesome. And I love that she's the one that won the shirt. So it's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, totally. So,
yep.
Sammy, you want to close us out or?
Yep.
Oh,
Till next time, let's go Devils.